Paycation.
Good afternoon.
First, giving honor to God, who is truly the head of my life.
Amen.
I am humbled. I am honored. Because when I look out in front of this room, none of this would have been possible had it not been for him.
That's right.
I want to say thank you to David Manning for being such an amazing visionary who trusted 5 people who got on a plane and flew to Dallas, Texas on a dream because we had faith bigger than the size of a mustard seed.
Yes.
I want to say thank you to my amazing coach amongst coaches. He is fabulous, fantastic, and simply amazing. He is the yin to my business yang, Mr. Shedrick White. I want to say also thank you to my coach, who literally 4 years ago when my sponsor quit, and my sponsor's sponsor quit,
wow.
He saw me waving like this in his genealogy, but he didn't quite take me seriously. But you know what? One day, he actually gave me a minute of his time, and I promised him that if he would just let me hold on to his coattail, I would do everything he told me. Yep. And he is the angel, the consummate angel that God delivered in this season to help my family get free. He has a woman of great integrity, solid posture, the first lady of Paycation. To Donald and Deborah Bradley, thank you.
Yes.
To all of my diamonds, Jackie, Clayton, Tim and Jolanda, Tracy, Mildred, Townsend, and all the diamonds in the making, all of my international executive CTCs. Without you, there is no me.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
In 1976, there was a woman by the name of Gina, born in Buffalo, New York. She was a prostitute. My daddy was a pimp. My grandmother was schizophrenic. My aunts and uncles were coke heads, weed heads, and all things in between. And Gina walked in one day and she was pregnant with this baby that her own mother attempted to beat out of her belly. She was the black sheep of the family and was not welcomed in her own home by the very blood that was running through her veins. And God didn't reveal this to me until 3 weeks ago when I was talking to my pastor, but he said, "Daughter, I have called you to be a modern day Moses." Because that very baby was left in a heroin house on the west side of Buffalo, and it wasn't for a stranger next door wondering why the mail was piling up, cracking the window open because she was just that nosy, going in and finding a baby that was wrapped in her own feces, had lost about 4 pounds of her birth weight, and all she knew was to get her to the local hospital. A few days later, a gentleman by the name of Duson would come by because his own daughter was banished from his home, he did make periodic stops. And he came by and he checked, and the neighbors told him there was a baby found here a few days ago. The doctor said it didn't look good, but she is at Millard Fillmore Hospital, for those of you who know Buffalo, New York. And he went to the hospital, and the doctor said, "We want you to say your goodbyes. It doesn't look good." And it was from that moment on, my grandfather said, "I see something else." And he stayed by my bedside, and by the grace of God, God allowed life to come back into my body. He allowed my weight to come back up to normal. And then they told the doctors, "You have to make a decision. Do we turn her over to the state or will you take her?" That day set my life on a course. And I'm going somewhere, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm going somewhere because if you know the story of Moses, you know that he was set on a course, put in a basket. He ended up being nursed by his own mother, but he had to go through some things. I want to leave a word in your spirit today as I continue on this journey. Somebody say Exodus.
Exodus.
Because a lot of times we look at our circumstances and we are ready to die right there. But see, there was somebody that saw just a little bit to believe in me. Somebody that said, "I'll try to love her," but really didn't have the capacity. So my life went on, and I'm going to tell you, it wasn't pretty. I went from being in what I thought was a healthy home to being abused, molested, raped, sodomized, to being locked up by the time that I was 13, to being incarcerated in juvenile hall, becoming a juvenile delinquent. Yes, if you Google me, you will see a mugshot or two. I went through hell and back and beyond, still trying to figure out where was it that I belonged. From the palace to the pit. And you think your situation is so hard. You want to quit the business because somebody told you no. You want to give up because you got a little bit of rejection. You want to throw in the towel because your best friend quit your business. You can't do it because your mother and father don't believe in your vision. And somebody say Exodus. Exodus. One of the things that I've come to understand is that all of that hell that I went through, from the failed marriage to the abortions, to the children out of wedlock, to the other failed marriage, to the failure upon failure upon failure. I read somewhere that a righteous man falls 7 times and he still gets back up. Yes. And as I was asking God what to do with this opportunity in this moment, he said, Exodus. And I said, Exodus? Why Exodus? Why, God? Because Moses didn't make it into the promised land. The children of Egypt didn't make it into the promised land. And God said, I want you to tell Paycation this. It's time to go from murmuring and complaining to championing. I want them to go from excuses to execution. I want them to understand that in the evening I will send manna, and in the morning I will send word. He said, I need them to understand that although they were in Egypt, it's time that it comes out of them. So those of you who are worried about where you are, you're stuck in the position, you may be murmuring, complaining, I should have been on the stage. If only I would have had my upline support. No, see, the thing is that while the children of Egypt were complaining, they were murmuring and complaining because of what Moses was doing. They had faith in Moses. Moses has faith in God. But what am I saying? Those of you who are simply saying, I'm waiting on my upline to help me. You need to get out of line and take your proper place. I asked God, I said, but God, why did God send bread in the morning? He said, here's the thing. One of the things we talk about in the business, Chinaza, he says that even though you went through all of that, you still knew how to look up. Even though things are not going the way you thought it would be, you still knew how to look up. My last company, my residual income was $265.43. That's the last check that I received from that company. And I'll never forget it because I used to get to the mailbox and I dared that check be late. How many of you know I kept putting zeros behind that check? Because God had showed me something. So the message is that if God calls you and he puts a ram in the bush and he sends you to the fiery hill, that there's something there that you've got to receive. Nobody in this room is here today by happenstance. You are here because he called this moment to be divine opportunity. He called this moment for today, right now, this period. This is not the time to be emotional. I don't care how you feel. Amen. Exodus. You got to go back to Egypt. You got to free the children. Then you got to get them through the desert. 40 days, 40 nights. They're going to press through. They're going to give birth. This time, this class of children of Egypt, they are actually going to make it into the land of milk and honey because we've got the best coaches. Yes. There's enough manna here to feed you for a day. See, here's what I understood, Chevy, when I studied that manna thing. It really bothered me, and I know we're not in church, I'm sorry. But here's the thing that I understood. When I studied that manna thing, Jesus was the consummate coach, and whatever your faith is, there is a higher being that controls things, and whatever your faith is, I respect it most humbly, but there was a consummate coach, and he told his children, take enough for the day. Don't take any more than what I give you. Don't do anything extra. Don't create your own system. Don't go here and try to reinvent a presentation. Don't try to do anything different than what might have died. Because the thing is, when they took extra, maggots began to form. They were doing too much. We got a system here that works.
Yeah.
We don't need to cheat it. We ain't got to change the price. We ain't got to do anything different. We don't have to manipulate it to get people to come in. It already sounds too good to be true. Those that have the vision, let them hear. The eyes that have the eyes, let them see. Those that are willing to come, let them come. Don't waste your time in the places, the moments, and the reminders, and the excuses. But I want to tell you this. There was a little girl who had just enough hope, had a whole lot of struggle. I walked out here with my daughter because I remember being pregnant with her and I was on suicide watch. Because I didn't want to be a single mom. I didn't want to be like my mother. I didn't want history to repeat itself. I didn't want to be what it was, but God said, I called you for such a time that you have to go through and be the example. So think not strange the fiery trials that you have gone through, because He called each and every one of you right now for this time.